Welcome to 843 TV. I'm your host, Lisa Richardson.
And I'm Will Wareham with WHHI-TV. We're coming to you today from Spring Island. We're actually on the community dock here, one of the community docks along the WHHI Creek, and an absolutely gorgeous day.
Absolutely. Joining us today, our first guest is Chris Marsh, the Executive Director of Spring Island Trust.
We're also joined by John Strother, broker in charge for Spring Island Realty. So stick around for more 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.
.843 TV, where Bluffton comes to speak.
Where Spring Island comes to speak.
Where Hilton Head Island comes to speak.
Where Beaufort comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak. Welcome to 843 TV. We're joined today by Chris Marsh, who's the Executive Director of the Spring Island Trust, and John Strother with Spring Island Realty. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
So we're here on a picture-perfect day at a community dock right along the WHHI Creek and on Spring Island. And Chris, you're the Executive Director of the Spring Island Trust. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what the Trust's primary role here is on Spring Island?
Spring Island is unique in the fact that it has an environmental nonprofit, the Spring Island Trust, that actually owns the nature preserves and is also responsible for environmental stewardship of the island.
Oh.
We're also responsible for helping educate the members about their role as environmental stewards and really getting to learn about nature and all the great things about it.
Yeah. Absolutely, and there's plenty of nature around. In fact, earlier I heard you reference the culture on Spring Island as a nature-based culture. Can you describe a little bit further about what you mean by that?
Spring Island's one of those places that people come, and if they fall in love with it, it turns out they share a lot with the other people that have that same affinity for nature. Mm-hmm. And as a result, you get a group of people with similar interests and similar values. And so one of the roles of the trust is really to help people understand what it means to live in harmony with nature here, to be good stewards of the natural resources on this island. We've got 12 different types of habitats. We just got a great variety of nature and nature experiences here. So that's our role, is to help people embrace that and understand what their role is.
No, absolutely, and I imagine, John, when people first come to the island, that's one of the first things that they've got to recognize, right?
Well, you do. You can't miss it when you come on. It's you either love it or hate it, one of the two.
Right.
It's like, wow, it's this overwhelming nature, unbridled.
Yes.
And I mean, what do y'all do with? How do people just come here and buy, or do you get people involved with the different nature programs that y'all do? Can you talk about some of those?
Sure. One of the things that's important is for people who are coming here as prospects is to understand what it means to live on an island where nature is part of the culture. And so we take people out and basically show them how to look at nature and all the great opportunities, and to take them out, whether it's kayaking, whether it's one of our hay wagon rides, but to show them great horned owls on the nest, or we've got 4 bald eagle nest here, and really show them the opportunities and to help them understand that when you live on an island like this, you have a role to be a steward of nature on your property. So this is not a place where you come and clean your lot and just put up something that would look like it was any other development. Right. You've really got to embrace the part of the island that you own and help take care of it.
Well, Chris, like we've been saying, it's absolutely gorgeous. Driving in here is beautiful, very natural. Tell us about how many residents are there? How many home sites, first of all?
There are 400 home sites.
Okay.
And right now there's 260 homes that have been constructed on the island. About 200 of those home sites have families that are here for more than half the year or for the full year. And so it's a very stable community. This is the primary residence for many people. And so there's a lot of expectations. This is where they spend their time.
Okay. And so what are some of the things that they can do to be part of the community? Because it is a little secluded. They have great lots, a lot of nature, but at the same time, community is a big focus. What are some of the things you all do to promote that? Or
Spring Island is one of those places where people sometimes come on the island, they go, there's nobody here, but yet we'll have a social function in the evening, and we'll have 150 people. And so it can be deceptive to you. One of the things the Trust does is that we sponsor a seminar series on Thursday evenings. We call them the Trust Talks. And we usually have anywhere from 60 to 125 people at these talks. We bring in scientists and artists and historians from our connections throughout much of the eastern United States. And so people get together for social time, and part of what we're doing is we're maintaining an intellectually stimulating place to be. And so that's one of our roles of the Trust. We also have regularly scheduled nature programs as well. And we have a sister nonprofit called the Lowcountry Institute that promotes the same sort of values and philosophies, but it's for the area at large. And the Master Naturalist Program that we do through the Lowcountry Institute is a key part of the environment here in terms of what people want to participate in. And so they learn a lot about living with nature here.
Well, the Master Naturalist Program, that's done in cooperation with Clemson, isn't it?
That's correct.
And, well, I met a guy, he said he'd made like 250 bluebird houses. I mean, and that y'all have a program where they report to Cornell. I mean, what kind of programs do y'all have like that?
One of the things about Spring Island is it's very different. But when you come here, there are so many volunteer opportunities. The best way to learn about something is to actually participate in it. Mm-hmm. So the Bluebird nest building program started with 60 bluebird boxes back in the 1990s. And as people learned about them, they wanted to come and help more. So they check the bluebird boxes once a week during the whole season. And people, by being that close, really get a chance to learn the cycle of nature, watch the babies grow up, see what happens to that box. And for many people, it's a very simple way to go from not knowing anything about nature to becoming a sort of an expert on one thing. And people really enjoy that. All the data goes into the Cornell lab, so it becomes part of a national database. And I believe we have the largest bluebird database for any community in the country with Cornell. So it's a win-win, and people get to share their stories as well. But we have a lot of other volunteer opportunities as well, monitoring wood duck boxes. We do surveys for birds. We actually, people learn about surveying alligators at night. We have, we condition our alligators so they avoid people. We have 2 DNR biologists, retired biologists actually, that work with us. And so we, in a very controlled way, we have opportunities for people to be engaged in the study of nature, as well as just being observers.
Chris, that's very educational and certainly very interesting. Stay right with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more 843 TV. Welcome back to 843 TV here on the beautiful Spring Island dock, and John and Chris are sharing with us all about the island. And Chris, we were talking about the nature program and all the different things, the ecosystems. Tell us a little bit more and continue with that as far as what you've got to offer, how that plays into the life of a resident here.
When people move here, many of them have had a very busy life in terms of in an urban setting. Spent much of their time engaged with whether it's raising children or just careers. And so when you come here, or when you start anew, so to speak, you're looking for something that brings variety. And the great thing about getting interested in nature is there's so many different aspects to nature that people, when they start learning about one particular thing, they get to do a lot of discoveries on their own. But to do that, you need somebody to show you, just like with learning a new sport or anything else. And so, as I mentioned to you before, we have the Master Naturalist Program that we do for the community at large, which includes people beyond the boundaries of Spring Island. But we also do a whole series of nature programs specifically for Spring Island members, whether they are morning trips out with Tony Mills, our education director who does our TV show, Coastal Kingdom. or Kristen Matson, who's one of our other environmental educators who really loves teaching people about astronomy as well as plants. We also do programs after dark where we're showing people owls and other nocturnal life. So through all these different sorts of experiences, people start seeing the world differently around them. And when you live on Spring Island, so much of that is in your backyard, or you see it when you're driving from the golf course to check your mail. And so everything starts looking different. And there's more things to look for, and that's exciting.
I have to absolutely agree with you. You're living in this Lowcountry area. It's just so wonderful just to look at the nature and just appreciate all the creation of the trees and the birds and the wildlife and the marsh. I totally agree with that. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that, Chris, because we've talked a lot about Spring Island in particular, but it's part of this greater area we call the Lowcountry. And we're really surrounded by one of the greatest salt marshes in the world, right?
That's correct. And that's why this is just a great setting for us to talk about. Spring Island is very special, but what's also special is the fact that its location and what surrounds it. So as we say on Spring Island, you spend half your time looking in Spring Island, but half looking out.
Right.
And so if you, like behind us, this salt marsh is actually part of what we call the Port Royal Sound area. It's a system. Our estuary is very different because it is actually an extension of the ocean. Mm-hmm. There's no freshwater rivers running into this system. As a result, we actually have marine environment going 22 miles inland. Because we are halfway in that system, we're right in the middle of it, we're 12 miles from the ocean, yet we're surrounded by very deep water. This tidal creek right next to us is 20 feet deep. It has tarpon rolling here, the dolphins are coming in, I've seen sea turtle heads pop up here. So when we're talking about exploring nature, the great thing about it is all you have to do is jump in a boat and go out, and you've got a huge area. You can go for miles and miles, whether it's fishing or bird watching or just enjoying the other natural experiences you can have here. Yeah. And that's what makes it special.
Yeah, and the Port Royal Sound is it's filled with wildlife, isn't it?
It is. It is truly a unique place. It's the deepest natural harbor in the southeastern United States. There's a lot of history here. There's a Port Royal Sound Foundation that has a maritime center nearby, so it provides lots of opportunities as well. So when people move to Spring Island, they may spend their first year exploring the island, but there's so much nature that surrounds us that it's a lifetime of discovery.
And Chris, I think it's important to note too, with all that, they're still very close to the grocery store, to places they can get where you for practical needs. It's just a few minutes to Beaufort or to Bluffton the other way, and there's all the resources so they can have the best of both worlds.
Exactly, and that's why we're a series of sea islands, and so if you want to go to a nice grocery store or restaurants, you're right around the corner. What I've learned after being to the big cities is we have a little bit of distance, but we get there a lot faster than those people that live in places with a lot of stoplights and traffic.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you use, as a descriptor for this area, is the Jackson Hole of the Southeast, or the East Coast, actually. I mean, what does that mean?
The reason I picked that term is when you say Jackson Hole, people immediately around the country have a vision of an area where there's a very nice place to go and spend your time as a vacation, but it's surrounded by large expanses of nature. Mm-hmm. And where we happen to be located here in southern South Carolina, most people don't realize we're in the same situation, but we are right to the north of us is Charleston. It's an hour-and-a-half drive away, but most of that land between has been preserved. There's 225,000 acres of nature preserves or large hunting plantations that are under conservation easement. So one of the great things we get to do as a community is that the Spring Island Trust takes groups of people up for nature experiences up in this Ace Basin, as the area is referred to. To the south of us is the Georgia coast, where a majority of the islands, coastal islands, are set aside and preserved. And so we take our trips and tours program is one of the things that the Trust does. And we take people, for example, to Little St. Simon's Island. 32 people went with us for 3 days down there. And then to the west of us, we have the Savannah River drainage, and it's got 165,000 acres that's preserved of river swamp. And so no matter which direction you go here, there's large undeveloped areas that will be protected for centuries, we hope, to come, but for many generations. And so it's just a great place to spend time. And nestled within that, we've got Savannah and Charleston, which are two of the most special historic cities to visit in the country. So it's a great place for, if you love both history and nature, to spend the rest of your life.
Yeah, it is. That's great.
Absolutely. Chris, John, we got to take another quick break. Stick around for one more segment of 843 TV. Welcome back to 843 TV. We're now joined by John Strother, broker in charge of Spring Island Realty. John, thanks again for having us.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We love coming out here, and apparently so do a lot of the national publications.
Yeah.
It seems like every time I look at a magazine or a newspaper, the Lowcountry is featured as one of the top places to come visit or live. Have you experienced the same?
I know, it's amazing. We get so many calls from people that have seen us or, seen this area. Like Travel and Leisure magazine, Charleston was just voted the #1 city in the world and in the United States as a subsection. Savannah was #8, so that's come so far in the past 25, 30 years.
It sure has.
And both of them are just absolutely beautiful pictures of, 18th century cities. And Beaufort Southern Living has called that one of the top 5 small southern towns, which is just an incredible 300-year-old town. And then Hilton Head, Travel and Leisure, named it the #1 island in the country and #8 in the world. So, you've lived here a long time, I have, as have you, and you start to look at this as like same old, same old.
Right.
But when people come and look at it with fresh eyes, it's just really an amazing spot with so many opportunities to do things. Charleston's just a little over an hour away, Savannah's 40 minutes away, Hilton Head's 30 minutes, and Bluffton is just
Booming.
It's exploding. Old town.
Absolutely has. Now, amongst all that, Spring Island has gotten a little accolades itself from one of my favorite, Coastal Living. Tell us about that.
I know, we're so lucky. In this month's Coastal Living magazine, they featured one of our homes. One of our members, he had bought 2 lots on the Carlton River and had a dock. It had these beautiful oak trees, and it was a narrow, long lot. And so Historical Concepts from Atlanta, he worked with them, and Jay Banks on Hilton Head on the interior design, designing this just really adorable, rambling, they called it a fish shack or whatever. It's a pretty nice fish shack. But it's a combination of, I believe, 4 buildings on the site that are nestled around these oak trees, these live oaks. And you can barely see it from the road, and you pull in, and it looks so modest. And it has these long dog trots to the main house, to the guest house, to the carriage house with Charles's man cave above that. I mean, it's just a really beautiful, beautiful home. And Golf Week has named Old Tabby Links, our golf course here. It's a very private course. There's we only have 400 total members, as one of the top 100 modern courses in the world. Wow. Not the state, but the world. Yeah. And one of the top 30 private residential courses in the country. But ours is so special, and it's just really nice that our members have that as a component to their experience here. You can go out and enjoy nature all day long and go out and play our golf course, and it's so unique in the sense that it's such a big course, and it's like a walk in nature. There are very few houses on it, and it's just an amazing piece of art.
Absolutely. Now, John, we usually reserve this section of the show to talk about specific home sites and available homes, but we're going to switch it up a little bit. I'm always interested in here, and we talked a little bit about the Lowcountry Rambler and how these designs kind of blend in with the natural setting here in Spring Island. I'm excited to hear about a sprawling design that an architect in Beaufort helped design. Is that correct?
Yes, Frederick and Frederick. Just a great firm, a husband and wife firm, and they really get involved in each person's individual likes and design the house around that. But the people that people bought this 4.5 acre lot on Pole Creek, a beautiful high lot with a pond to the right, and the marshes and the Colleton River in the distance out, and the lot must be 20, 21 feet high. So I mean, it's just, you're sitting high on this bluff, beautiful breezes, beautiful hardwoods around it. So they interviewed, and there's a process here. You don't go to a builder and say, well, here, you built this house 30 times. Can you build this over here?
Right.
So they invited a series of architects to come, and so they all talked about what kind of experience do you want here. So it gives people an opportunity to build their dream home, their true dream home. And then you get, so they had 4 firms. They told them all the things that they liked. They all came back with their interpretations of that. And Frederick came back with one that called out to the past of Beaufort County and of Spring Island, in the sense that Tabby walls were used predominantly through it, which reflect the old Tabby ruins here. Round brick columns, which were used at Sheldon Church, the old Sheldon Church outside of Beaufort, and here on the first golf clubhouse that we had here.
Okay.
So you drive in, there's the carriage house, there's a low wall, a Tabby wall. You walk in this courtyard, a garden shed over here. There's a guest house over here overlooking the pond, a 2-story guest house, this sprawling house with 4 over 4 windows. So it's nothing but windows and brick columns looking out over the marshes, over the courtyard, out over the pond. It's just an amazing piece of architecture. And you know, we help people with each step of that process, introducing architects, introducing them to the builders, and it's a wonderful experience.
Really cool. Sounds like a kind of a blank canvas to build your dream home.
It is. It really is.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to come out here. And thank you for watching 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.